Like most English kids growing up in the early 2000s, I grew up with games like Pokemon, Call of Duty, and the most relevant game for today, RuneScape. RuneScape never fell off. They tried elevating the franchise further with new RuneScape, however fans always gravitated to the classic old school feel, which seems more popular than ever. I always come back from time to time to OSRS as I love the vibe, the world, and of course, the nostalgia. The grind in that game is tougher than anything else I've ever experienced, and whilst I enjoy it periodically, I can't commit for large stretches of time. Despite this, I've always longed for a new way to experience the world of RuneScape, and now we finally have it. The gameplay shown here today will be very early spoiler-free stuff, but stick around to the end if you want to see me fight the final boss of the current game version. It's pretty cool, I'll admit. RuneScape Dragon Wilds basically shadow dropped a couple of days ago, and while these build, craft, survive games aren't my personal cup of tea, I knew I had to give this one a chance. You're dropped into a world that immediately awakens your inner nostalgia. The character's base outfit being the classic two-tone greens got me right away. You start in a church with nods to Saradomin, and upon exiting you're met with familiar faces you'll know from OSRS. From here the game doesn't stray too much from the path you'd expect one of its genre to follow. It's the classic gather materials, craft new stuff, use the stuff to gather better materials and craft even better stuff. Settle down with a base somewhere, try and manage your inventory that's filled with miscellaneous items you have no idea what's useful and garbage, and off you go. Dragon Wilds plays into the franchise's roots however with a similar XP system to other RuneScape titles. Hitting a tree and seeing number go up gave me immediate dopamine, and I will be getting max woodcutting as soon as it becomes available. So the game is of course early access. We have a promising roadmap already provided, which is nice, but naturally the game is going to be lacking in multiple areas and missing content you hope to engage with. While the XP system is a staple of RuneScape, you won't be obtaining a 99 cape at the moment. Skills seem to be capped out at level 50, and while there's a good amount of unlocks already tied to these levels, I imagine the current system and progression will be re-evaluated and fleshed out further moving forward. Other skills, while you can engage with them such as magic and ranged, straight up just don't have levels yet. This doesn't prevent you from doing anything. You can still craft an improved bow, and you can still wear any particular pieces of armor you like. It just means it's a very simple, straightforward experience at the time of recording. With that being said, there's still a lot to unlock through these levels that is already available in the game. A key mechanic being spells. Spells can be casted at the expense of runes. The process of obtaining runes is very streamlined and straightforward, so you can cast spells as often as you need to without running into resource issues for the most part. With that being said, you can't just cast them repeatedly on loop. You will eventually run out of resources, which essentially means resources aren't just this artificial thing that happens to exist, and spells do also have cooldowns which vary depending on which spell you're using. Effectively, the way these work, have you leveled up your woodcutting? Cool, now you can cast a spell to instantly chop down multiple trees. Got your mining up? Here's Rock Explosion to clear out a node. Here's a spell to jump higher so you don't waste time walking around steep landscape. There's a lot. There's so much in fact that you already can't fit everything into one spell wheel. The player must instead choose which spells they find most useful or tailor their wheel depending on the activity they're engaging with at that time. It's not quite as complex as I maybe make it sound here today, but with more and more being added moving forward, I'm sure it will be to that extent. I can see the player having access to multiple wheels, so you can tailor one for specifically combat, another for crafting, another for harvesting. The system works really well and naturally improves the standard survival experience. Essentially, do you want some quality of life? Well, here you go, but we'll be taking some resource to cover the expense. I guess a thumbs up from me. Something many of my returning viewers might be interested in, of course, is the combat. It's hard to demonstrate using early game footage, so you might want to stick around to see me fight the final boss if you want the full combat experience. Also subscribe. What I will say however is that the combat feels surprisingly nice for a game like this. It's not perfect and improvements can be made. At times it feels a bit floaty, other times it's clunky. What I will say though is compared to others in its genre, combat in Dragon Wilds is already at a great foundational level. Dodge rolling works. Shields have purpose, parries are available, you can switch weapons seamlessly mid-combat depending on your need, later weapons have cool special skills, the list goes on and on. Depending on the armor set you're using, you'll get set bonuses that benefit certain types of weapons. Very similar to OSRS, you can take studded leather for range combat, wizard robes for magic, or plate armor for melee. And again, without sounding like a broken record, it's very early days for the game, so all of this will be built upon moving forward, which is very exciting. then it wouldn't be this type of game if we didn't have a bit of base building. And base building in Dragon Wilds works. That feels very rare to say with these types of games. From my personal experience, usually it can be extremely frustrating just trying to get two pieces of your house to connect to each other. Things clip through or don't snap properly. You just straight up usually can't place a certain tile in a certain place for no particular reason. But not in this game, at least from what I've experienced so far. And there's enough complexity in the current game for creative players to build some pretty cool bases without a doubt. More intricate designs and furniture options are of course lacking at present, but again, the system is functional, which is the most important thing for an early access first release. It just means the devs can now put more and more of their time into improving an already good system instead of working to fix something that should already work. In general, functional is a great way to describe the foundations that have been laid by the developers so far. In fact, I would argue the game does go a step beyond this and has already introduced great systems and mechanics. And when you pair that with the already brilliant world building of Runescape, this game has a very bright future. I'm going to be playing a lot more Dragon Wilds and I hope to cover more of it whenever a new patch is introduced, so please let me know in the comment section if that's something you would be interested in seeing. For now, let's move on and get into what is currently quote unquote the final boss of Dragon Wilds. Even in simply just 1 year time, this will likely be known as the first boss, so I'm sure it's not really a spoiler. But even so, if you don't want to see the fight just yet, I completely understand and I want to thank you for watching up to this point. This is your final warning to click away. Okay, let's get into it. So at the top of the tower at the Dragon King altar, you place the horn which summons the current final boss, Velgar. Velgar is a dragon, surprise surprise, in the game called Dragon Wilds, and its main thing is that it of course uses poison attacks. Throughout the game it will attack your base, it will randomly throw just these puddles of poison all across the map. So the game does teach you what to expect by the time you get here. Now I'll be very honest, the fight doesn't have a lot of moving parts. I mean, Velgar itself has 3 main moves, I'd say. It has a bite, it slams its hands, and it can use its poison breath. Between phases, Velgar will fly up into the air and barrage the ground with multiple AoE pools of poison. It's very simple to dodge, and they fade away very quickly. Velgar then does gain access to a couple new moves, mainly being the rocks that follow on from its slam, which will track the player. Again, it's very straightforward to dodge and not really much of a challenge. That being said, if you do get hit by Velgar, it does do substantial damage. I didn't take any health potions or anything like that with me into this fight, so it was a bit risky. By simply walking away and chilling for a little bit, your health will continue to naturally regenerate. So as long as you play safe, Velgar doesn't offer too much threat for the player. My main method of combat in Dragon Wilds at present is melee. For me, it seems to be the most damage. It also feels very nice. Depending on the weapon you use, it's a very tactile feeling. In the gameplay shown, I'm using the Abyssal Whip, which drops from another sub-boss that can be found in swamp areas. My special ability, Abyssal Snare, doesn't have too much use in this fight. Essentially, it's a stagger that pulls in smaller mobs. So against something like Velgar, not only does it not have function, it straight up just didn't really work or do damage. I do opt to use a shield, but in this fight, again, I didn't have much purpose for it. I couldn't seem to land a parry. I'm not sure if that is or isn't possible. But also, as you'll see, because Velgar does hit so hard, if I do block an attack, it basically staggers me. It does negate the damage I would otherwise take. However, dodge rolling and evading taking damage that way was much more effective and allowed me to get more damage in after the fact. I found myself getting much more aggressive as the fight went on because I understood that it wasn't particularly punishing me for playing that way. For the most part, as long as you dodge the AoE and phase transitions, you'll be okay, because the dodge roll timing is very charitable. There were only a couple instances throughout the fight where I did find myself taking damage and got a little bit concerned, but with me having access to a full set of iron plate armor, which I assume is currently the highest defense within Dragon Wilds, it wasn't really an issue. My Abyssal Whip did very high damage. I did try swapping out to my bow and magic throughout the fight just to see if it did more damage or to see if that was a more effective route of going about the fight. But I found just spamming left click with my whip was the highest DPS. Nonetheless, it's a very interesting fight, very cinematic for the early state of the game, and as they continue adding further bosses and more dragons, I am extremely excited to see what the devs cook up. I imagine they will also revisit Velgar as a fight to give it a bit more complexity, maybe a cutscene, who knows. Now if you're interested as to the reward you receive for defeating Velgar, Well, once you return home, you get an anti-dragon shield, which is incredibly nostalgic as an OSRS player. But the shield itself is very underwhelming and has me confused as to whether or not I was OP when I went into that fight. But so it turns out you can go upgrade the shield at your crafting station into the Dragonblight shield. This has the same block as the Iron shield. It just looks much cooler, so I'll take it for the time being. But there we have it. That's my first look at RuneScape Dragon Wilds. I hope you enjoyed the video today. Let me know if there's anything specific you want me to discuss further with this game, or if you want to see more content in general as we move forward in its development. I'm a fan and I will be playing it regardless. It's just a case of whether or not you lot want to see it on the channel. Thanks for watching.